welcome into the B-Boy Show. Look, we back. We back. Y'all can hear us now. Let me know if y'all getting an echo. I don't know if y'all will, but let me know. I'm trying something different today. That's why all the technical difficulties. But y'all, y'all with me. Hit that subscribe button anyway. We working through it. But anyway, listen. Let's talk. So it wasn't me. It was y'all. No, I'm kidding. But look, the Raiders have hired Declan Doyle as their offensive coordinator, and for me, I'm excited, y'all. I'm excited because I think it's twofold. I think it's twofold. All right. So think about this. The Clan Doyle doesn't call, hadn't called plays for the Bears, but he was very integral in the maturation of that offense for Caleb Williams. I mean, Caleb Williams, from last year to this year, completely different guy, right? Completely differently coached, much more disciplined, and all of that is big. All of that is huge, y'all. So I think that's big, right? Interestingly enough, only 29 years old. That's another part of it that's kind of interesting to me. That's another part of it that I'm like, okay, that's interesting, right? It's very interesting to see a guy only 29 years old with the ability, right? With the ability to kind of make this what is a promotional move. Now, realistically, it's a lateral move, right? Realistically, it's a lateral move, but you to get a head coaching opportunity later on in your career, you're gonna want to be a guy who call plays. So this is kind of a promotion at the same time as it was a lateral move, and it's very interesting because I think that was honestly his interest in this job. He wanted to be able to call plays. That's kind of what gave Dave Canales, his job in Carolina was, he called plays for Baker Mayfield. Really showed like, hey, I can truly develop this guy, and it's very interesting, right? But look, let's talk. All right, so I think this is great. I think Jesse Minter is absolutely cooking. Hibachi Grill cooking at this point. This man is absolutely cooking. All right. This man is absolutely cooking. And the reason I say that I feel like Jesse Minter is cooking is because this man is kind of, like I said, and I said it in the last video, he's kind of creating his own tree right now. Right. Like now, albeit, you know, this comes from Ben Johnson's tree, right? Like, but he didn't call plays under Ben Johnson. So it really makes you wonder. And I don't think he's called plays at the NFL level so far, but it's just interesting, right? It's just interesting. At first I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then as I thought about it more, I'm like, this is a good move, right? This is a good move because what it does is it gives you longevity because he's never called plays before. So now you got to build that trust with other NFL organizations. Also, I know a lot of people were kind of excited about Nathan Shieldhouse, right? A lot of people were kind of excited about Nathan Shieldhouse, and I get that. But it's a similar move, right? You're talking about a guy who's not necessarily calling plays, but still in the film room, still has a lot to do with development, still has a lot to do with, how players get better day by day. And Ben Johnson's offense was a lot of fun. Caleb Williams, very similar, and some of the plays that he can make, very similar to Lamar Jackson. So that's another part of it too, right? That's another part. You want a guy who's worked with a guy who can make off script plays like Lamar Jackson can. And it's very interesting because Jesse Minter mentioned this point. He said he wanted to win championships, like plural, right? So to get a guy who's a little bit on the younger side, you kind of got to build up, everybody calls it sweat equity almost, right? But you got to build up that sweat equity almost, right? You got to build up to the point of teams trusting you to be a head coach, right? It reminds me a lot of Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City too, where Eric Bieniemy didn't get a whole lot of credit for, I mean, he got a decent amount of credit, but he wasn't getting all the credit for Patrick Mahomes' development because Patrick Mahomes was like kind of like a prospect, a project coming out of college. So for him to create what we've seen out of Patrick Mahomes, everybody gave that credit to Andy Reid. So then Eric Bieniemy, he moved on. He didn't move on to be a head coach because he wasn't necessarily calling plays. I don't think he wasn't necessarily calling plays. He moved on because he wanted the ability to call plays elsewhere and potentially be a head coach later on in life. Now, of course, everything comes full circle. He's back with the Chiefs. That's very interesting too. Also makes you wonder how long Andy Reid's going to stick around because that possibly could be a change of the guard type situation right there anyway. But I love this move. I love what Jesse Minter's doing. I think he's really creating his own he's really creating his own new Ravens, if that makes sense, right? This was what we wanted. We wanted a complete overhaul of the Baltimore Ravens, and that's exactly what we're getting. We're getting a complete overhaul of the Baltimore Ravens, which is big, right? We're getting a complete overhaul. Yes, Jesse Minter may have coached under John Harbaugh. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Doesn't necessarily mean anything for the habits that he picked up, right? He's coached under other Harbaughs, right? Coached under his dad, of course. So like he's gonna have plenty of opportunity to show what he can do. But based off his hires so far, I like this is another thing I like too. He's taking chances, right? Like Todd Monken came in. Todd Monken, great coordinator. I like him a lot. Glad he's at the Browns. Todd Monken came in. He's an older guy. How long does he really want to stay as an offensive coordinator before becoming a head coach in the league, right? Doyle, I think, is very interesting because even if you bring in somebody else, Shieldhouse is already getting a bunch of interviews as a head coach, as a head coaching candidate. So why, right? So if he's already getting head coaching candidate option, like interviews now, how in the world how long do you really think he's going to last? He comes in, Lamar Jackson wins another MVP, he's gone the next year, right? The Ravens don't want that because Jesse Minter said, hey, I want championships, right? I want championships. I want multiple. So I want my staff to stay intact for as long as they possibly can stay intact. And Jesse Minter calling plays, that allows for his defensive coordinator to come in and probably do a similar move to what Doyle does, but the defense doesn't skip a beat. But also what it does for the offense is it gives this guy a chance to become what he wants to become, right? So I think it's very interesting, y'all. I'm excited. I'll probably come back a little bit later on and talk a little bit more about this, but I'm just excited. I just want to give my kind of knee-jerk reaction on what was going on. The Ravens, they also got a new O-line coach. I think it was from Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look real quick, which is good because that, another thing about that, Dwayne Ledford, who actually is the Falcons. I'm tripping. It's the Falcons, which is interesting, right? I think he's also involved in the run game aspect as well, so that's interesting too. I love that because I feel like the Falcons usually have a pretty good O-line, right? And they're physical. So I'm very excited to see how these changes are going to take fold. But look, y'all, I gotta get up out of here. I definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'll see you guys on the next episode of the Be More Show. Until next time.